I think everybody is in place. Everybody's ready to go. Jake, Michael, are you there?
We are here. We're here in Napa,
Hi.
in the heart of Napa here, in the home, Estate 8, right here in the great room. And I'm here with Michael Mondavi. It's great to have you today, Michael.
It's wonderful to be with you.
So we've got a bunch of our leaders all around the country, and this is a really special treat, not just for all of you who earned Leader Summit, but a special treat for everybody on our team every time we get a chance to spend some time with Michael and go back a little bit into the earlier days of Napa Valley, and also hear Michael's personal stories and his journey of how he got here. So Michael, thanks for joining us.
It's a pleasure to be with you, and my compliments to you and the whole team for what you're doing. It's terrific.
Thank you. We have you and your family and our partnership with Folio to thank for a lot of things along the way, but amongst them, being able to navigate the wine industry here, not just in Napa, but in California and in general, and our opportunity to make great wines, world-class wines, to be amongst these great winemaking families. We're truly humbled for it. So,
Well, you're doing a good job, and it'll be even better in the future.
thank you. So, first question is, tell me just about a time that you were really inspired by someone.
Oh, that goes so far back. It's most of you aren't even around then. I was about 13 years old, and my grandfather took me for a walk in the vineyard. And he bent over and picked up a handful of soil and put it under my nose, and he said, "Smell it. It's clean, it's healthy." And he goes like this, and he goes, "When you grow up, what's your most important job?" And I said, "Make good wine." "No, make good wine." He said, "That's important, but your most important job, what is it?" I said, "Make a profit, make money." He said, "No, someday this land and this soil will belong to you and your cousins. Your most important job is to have it healthier for your children when you give it to them 40 years from now."
I love that.
He did not know ecology. He did not know natural farming. He lived it. It was in his DNA. I forgot about that message for about 25, 30 years. And my brother and I were paying bills and noticed how much was going for herbicide, pesticide, fungicides, etc. And all of a sudden, that walk in the vineyard with my grandfather struck me like lightning. And I said, "Tim, we're abusing the soil. We're not nurturing it and helping. We're not living in partnership with Mother Nature." That really changed the direction of our thinking, our farming, and as a result, the quality of our wines became better because of natural farming. My grandfather didn't know what the word organic meant, but he lived it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great story. Amazing. Can you still picture the scene when you were there? Can you see
Oh,
it?
yeah. I mean, he was all of about 5'7", and I was about, to his shoulder or something.
Yeah. How often did you get to go out and do those kind of walks with your grandfather?
Not that frequently. He lived in Lodi, where he handled the grape shipping business that our family really got started in. And he would come about once a month for the weekend, say a Thursday through Sunday or Monday, and stay at the Charles Krug Ranch and Winery, where I grew up. And I got to spend time with him there. And it was just really wonderful.
Awesome. Well, your family's always been heavily involved in the community outside of wine growing for generations. Everybody knows your involvement in the wine growing industry, but outside of it, you've had a huge impact on the community. And how important to you is community, and what are the critical issues that you, your own family is focused on right now?
That's really interesting, because I think that we can only be a healthy industry if we give back to the community and back to the industry. And learned this again from my grandparents, who were immigrants with nothing. And they always wanted to do that. My brother, sister, my father, Margaret, made sure that they were my father and Margaret were more focused on the arts. And that's fine. My wife and I have a foundation that's been going for about 15 years. And we give a sizable sum every year to children in need, women in need, and elderly in need in Napa Valley. And we know that within Napa, we can make a meaningful difference to those individuals who need it and their families. If we were just to do it kind of in a united way, in a very broad way, it would be so diluted that nothing would happen. I was shocked in 2004 to find out that during the Thanksgiving and Christmas holidays, over 500 children would go hungry because they wouldn't get meals from the school. Here, opulent Napa Valley, 500 kids going hungry during 2 wonderful cycles of the year in the summer. And I went home and told my wife, and she said, we have to eliminate that. And starting 2004, we took care of it.
That's amazing. I love that.
And we do it all under the radar. We don't have the PR. It's all, our grants and our checks are done through the Napa Valley Foundation.
Yeah.
So they don't know it's a Mondavi. And we just wanted to stay below the radar, but do the right thing.
Well, I remember when the fires were happening, I talked to you early on in it, and I said, I've raised a big chunk of money, where should I put it? And you were one of the first people to introduce me to the Napa Valley Foundation, the community foundation here. They do great work. And then also, I think the first time we ever interacted with ONEHOPE was through you. And we are now at the point to where we've raised 6 figures for ONEHOPE, but that started with a small check and being introduced through your family. And they do great work too, as you know, with the farmers here.
It was amazing. Again, going back about 30 plus years, we started the Clinic Olay, and it was getting like 3 doctors to donate a day a week to see patients who were in the farm working community. And from that vision of, hey, we have to take care of our workers like they're part of our extended family, it grew to Clinic Olay now as a model for the world. It's really terrific.
I would say, like, when we think about our purpose, it's 3 simple words: nourish the future. You guys epitomize that, from the way that you're nourishing the future of the soil to the way that you've nourished the future of the community here. And you know, your father, Robert, and your grandfather, Cesar, get a lot of the attention, and a lot of people know them. But I thought I'd dig in a little deeper about the impact on your life that your mom and your grandmother, Rosa Margaret, had on your life as well.
Well, you know, particularly in the 50s, 60s, 70s, the men got all the attention. And that was not right. My grandmother, my mother, and my aunt are the reason that the Mondavi family has been successful in the wine business in Napa and in California, because they established the values. My grandfather, father, uncle, brother, and I had passion and energy, but we learned the values from the grandmother, the mother, and the aunts. And you need that balance of proper values with the drive. And it's something that I'm so happy to see with the women's movement and everything, that women are getting almost the recognition they deserve. They're not getting it all yet. Because the men still are the macho, you know, I'm the hero, I got it all done for you. But it's the women, in my family at least, made the difference between success and failure.
Well, you just, on our way in here to the great room, we walked by Tiffany, Kristen, and Sarah, and you saw the women who drive the values and the company in general with us. So, and you've seen them along the way.
You're very fortunate in having that as part of the founder group. Those wonderful, intelligent, dynamic women.
No doubt, no doubt. We've got a lot of people that are out there. These are our best leaders in the community. But they're still, a lot of them are just still in their early days of learning how to sell. We have an opportunity where you don't have to be a superstar salesperson or somebody who's had a lot of experience doing that. You have to have a passion for our values: hope, unity, empowerment, authenticity. This has to be a story that's easy for you to tell and natural for you to tell. But you don't necessarily have to be a salesperson, if you will. However, doing sales is really hard, as you and I know. You're getting a no a lot more often than you're getting a yes usually, at least in my situation. Maybe with you, you're a pretty charming guy, Michael, but I bet you've gotten more no's in your life than yeses, right?
You don't learn if you don't get a few no's.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So do you have a piece of advice or two that you would say for a person getting started or wanting to grow in sales?
A couple of very simplistic things. Number one, you always have to respect your customer or the person you're speaking with. And part of that respect is if they say no or aren't interested, don't just keep going back with the same message. I'll give you an example. In the 60s, the Los Gatos Wine and Food Shop was the best wine shop in then what's now Silicon Valley. And so I would go down and visit them on a Wednesday. And first wine we had was a Riesling. I had him taste it. The second, a month later, was the Chardonnay. And he took me over and said, look, I have 4 California Chardonnays. I don't need any more Chardonnay. A long story short, I visited him 8 months in a row on the first Wednesday of the month, but never once did I have him taste the same varietal wine. And on the last, I was bringing the Cabernet because it needed longer aging. And he saw me, and I was there at 9 o'clock when he's opening. And he says, hey, kid, you again? I said, yes, sir. He said, I'll make you a deal. If you get back in your car and put that basket, I almost brought a basket with a loaf of French bread and the wines and glasses, put the basket in your car and drive home, you can send me 5 cases of each wine you've presented. And I said, do you mean that? He said, yes. And I said, I'm loading the car. I stopped and I said, why are you doing that? He said, you showed me respect. You never once repeated and tried to tell me redundantly the same story. You respected my intelligence, and I appreciate that. I drove home, immediately home, got the pickup, loaded up about 50 cases of wine, and delivered it that afternoon. He became our largest single customer for over 15 years.
I love that story.
So you have to respect, and don't be a wine geek storyteller. Wine is sold on relationships and respect.
What a great story for our team there. I also remember, and this is a lot of Michael's stories. You're just getting to know him, and it's a little peek into who he is and how their brand and business started. But a lot of them start with you in the truck, driving down 29 and just trying to get a few visitors to the winery, and you were delivering out of the back of your truck, and it's been such an inspiration for us in the way that we started out of a public storage unit and delivering out of our trucks too.
Well, remember baseball. The people who are making multi-millions of dollars a year, their batting average may be only 8 or 10 points higher. If they're batting .301, they're making millions a year. They're batting .285, .290, they're in the reserve squad and barely surviving. That extra little effort, that extra little drive makes the difference between success and failure.
Speaking of failure, is there something that you've seen along the way or experienced along the way that was a common mistake that either you made or you've seen other wine salespeople make?
Talk down to your customer or lecture your customer, whether it's a sommelier, whether it's a consumer. If you talk down to them, and especially if you're so excited, it took me a while to learn because I was making the wine. I was so excited about the process, what I was doing. I used 2 egg whites per barrel in the fining, and I did this. And all of a sudden I noticed their eyes are glazing over.
Yeah.
Just because it's exciting to you or me doesn't mean it's exciting to them.
Yeah.
Try to understand what they want to understand or learn, and then communicate that. Don't talk story. You have to maintain your integrity, and you have to be straight. But we in the wine business are so blessed with so many neat things that we do in the vineyard, so many neat things in the winery or the blending, that if we told our customers that in detail, it would take hours and they would solve insomnia. I mean, they'd be asleep. And so we have to edit things and edit our passion to make sure we're listening with our ears. And remember, we have 2 ears, 2 eyes, 2 nostrils. That's 6, and only 1 mouth. It's better to use the receptors in that ratio.
I like that. I bet you there'll be a few people on my team who remind me of that now. They'll say, remember what Michael said, use those receptors, Jake.
I've told this to a number of people who said, you don't practice it very well, do you? And I said, you're right, no, I don't. But I think about practicing.
Well, I can tell you that when you're speaking in a room, and having been in a few of them with you, that when you're speaking, everybody's listening. And I think one of the best things to do is to ask the people who you admire what they did, mistakes they made, successes they had, and all those things. But another smart thing to do is to ask people who you respect a lot in winemaking and the industry what wine they have in their fridge, so you can get suggestions on what to drink next. What do you got?
For example, I have a great wine cellar that was actually photographed and did about a 3-page article in Wine Spectator a couple of years ago that have probably 400 cases plus of wine in there. And people say, well, God, you have these wonderful wines from the 50s, 60s, 70s, from Bordeaux, from Tuscany, from Napa. This weekend, I'm going to be enjoying some Michael Mondavi Rosé of Cabernet on the rocks.
Nice.
Fill the glass with ice and put the rosé on the rocks. It's going to be a warm weekend. It's refreshing. It's a wonderful aperitif, or it's wonderful with the meal. I also have an Emblem Napa Cabernet, and I'm going to serve it at cellar temperature, not room temperature.
Yeah.
And I learned that in Spain from Alvaro Palacios, who's a great winemaker, and he would always serve his wines in the summer, the red wines, at cellar temperature. He said, if the wine is warmer, it loses its refreshment. It's not as refreshing.
Yeah.
And he said, if you want it warmer, you can just put your hands around it. It'll warm up.
Yeah.
But if you're at the table, it's not going to chill down.
Right.
Yeah,
and so go one direction, not the other. So
I drink more mid-aged and mid-tier wine. I like, for example, our Animo, which is an Italian word for soul or spirit, our Animo Cabernet and Sauvignon Blanc, but they are really special occasion wines. And then our flagship, the M Cabernet Sauvignon by Michael Mondavi, that's for very special. And I like to have that wine aged 10 to 15 years in the bottle before serving that. So I don't think you have to have a special wine for 90+% of the meals. If it tastes good to you, it's good. Yeah. If it doesn't taste good to you, you don't have to learn how to like it. Find another variety or another producer that pleases you.
Yeah, I think the first time I had tasted lots of red wine, at least at that cellar temperature, which what is 58 degrees?
58 to 60 degrees, but I also, on younger wines, I love to decant them or even double decant them. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily back in the bottle. And if I'm home alone, and I've done this a couple times in the restaurants, and the sommeliers almost want me thrown out of the place, but they'll serve me a little glass to make sure the wine's not corked, and I'll check it and say if that's fine. I said, may I see the bottle? And I'll take the bottle. I only do this if it's my wine. I won't do it with something else. I put my thumb over it, pretend it's a martini shaker, and I shake it like mad, and then take your thumb off, and there are going to be about a ½ inch of foam, bubbles. And the reason is there's residual carbon dioxide in all young wine, red or white. Very microscopic. You can't feel it on your tongue. But in a young red wine, that micro carbon dioxide combined with the tannin exaggerates the tannin.
Yeah.
Try it. Take the glass you just pour and take the other with the martini. Put them side by side. The aromatics of the aerated wine is blossoming out. The flavor is soft and supple. And it drives sommeliers crazy, but it really works on young wine.
That's something I've always loved about drinking wine with you is, and we say it often, is you take your winemaking seriously, but you don't take yourself too seriously, and you don't create these crazy rules about how to drink wine. And so I think even people out there hearing you talk about putting rosé over ice this weekend, a couple of our friends just took a big deep breath and went, "Oh, that's okay. See, Michael Mondavi even said he does it."
Think about it. Even red wine with some ice and water in the summer is very refreshing.
Right.
And people have said, how can you put good wine with ice? I said, because if you put bad wine with ice, it still tastes bad. It's just cold.
Well, the first time I had a number of wines at that cellar temperature was with you guys. I was with Megan, who's now my wife, but it was about a decade ago. And Michael, or you and Rob invited us over to try a handful of different wines. And it was down in the little barrel cellar that you guys had there. We went down the elevator and it opened and I was just mesmerized. And these wines tasted so good. There's nothing like drinking them while you're down in the cellar. And it was one after another after another.
It was fun, yeah.
Yeah, it was a really fun tasting. Megan at the time, it was like her first formal tasting, and she didn't realize that you're supposed to spit during a tasting like this, because you guys tasted us through like 30 or 40 different barrel tastings. So when we
poor lady.
when we went to get up, she grabbed my arm really quickly and was like steadying herself out, and we walked out of there. She was pretty secretive about it, but she did a good job covering it
Well,
up.
I think she got a heck of an education.
Yeah, that was the beginning of her wine education for sure. That was also the beginning of a beautiful relationship here. You guys have been more than just a partner, supplier, or vendor type partner of how some people think in the industry, and really been, friends. And you have been a mentor to me and to others on our team. We really look up to you, and we've really embraced this idea that it's all about serving wines that you would be proud to have at your dinner table.
Absolutely.
With your own family for a special event. And so that's what we've tried to always hold ourselves to as far as a standard.
That's the only standard you need. If you're proud to serve that wine to family and friends at your home table, that is a good wine. It doesn't have to be a 100-point wine. It could be a 70-point wine, but if it tastes good and invites you to have a second glass, that's the right wine.
That's great. I have one last thing, and then we'll send it back over to our team in Ohio. You've done so many things in the wine industry. You built the biggest wine brand and winery of our recent generation here in Napa. Really were as big a part as anybody about pushing that boulder up the hill since 1966 when you planted roots next door. All the way to this massive global brand that you guys built, and your family's brand still carries a ton of mystique with it and everything. If there was one thing that you want people to remember about you in 100 years from now, and your legacy, is there something that stands out to you?
Try to make sure that you do things that increase the quality of your family's life and of others' life with your products. We are fortunate because we grow and produce a product that gives people pleasure. And you need to be proud of every single wine you produce. And if you're proud of it, don't worry about the legacy. It'll follow.
That's great. Great insights, Michael. It's always great picking your brain. It's great to have you here in the figurative and literal home to our brand. Again, we're so fortunate, our team's so fortunate to get to spend a little time with you this morning, either over their coffee or their first glass of wine for our East Coasters. And we'll...
But wine's not just for breakfast anymore. We can have wine with croissants.
You heard it here. Michael said it. Put a dash Michael Mondavi next to it. Wine's not just for breakfast anymore.
But thank you and your team, and my compliments to each and every one of you. You're doing a great job. Keep it up. Be persistent, but not redundant.
Thanks, Michael. We really appreciate it. We're so excited to have you back here in the future, and also to swing open the doors of the winery and invite you in.
It's a pleasure, and you're doing a wonderful job.
Thanks, Michael.
Stay well.
All right, Chris, back over to you. You and Kelly, take us away.